No,
Good
no worries.
evening and welcome to the Collector's Compass, where we don't just talk about collecting, we navigate it. I'm your host, Alex Efron, founder of Collectors MD, and this show is all about cutting through the hype, asking the hard questions, and getting real about what it means to collect with intention. Tonight's guest is someone I deeply respect, not just for his insights into the hobby, but for how he shows up in it. He actually invited me to be on his show, Hobby Hangout, a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, for an honest and wide ranging conversation. And I'm grateful he's kind enough to return the favor tonight. You may know him as Denny Cards, but tonight we are going beyond the content and into the real conversations that matter. We're talking stories, struggles, accountability, and everything in between. So whether you're here for cards, conversation, or clarity, grab a seat, hit that like button, and let's get into it. Denny, how you doing, man?
I love your intro much more than mine. That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
I appreciate it. I worked on it for all of 15 minutes, well, about an hour ago. What's going on, man? Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you for being on my podcast. I am going to take the guest role, and I'm going to let you steer tonight's conversation. You sent me a very good agenda, but kind of like how I responded to you. Best laid plans sometimes just don't go the way you want it to. But I look forward to the conversation tonight. I think that if people follow me on Instagram, they just see the Instagram version of me. But there's definitely a deeper layer that I don't want to talk about the Shrek onions and peeling all of that, but there are definitely nuances to all of us, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk and just be a guest. And I'll try my best to not get into host mode.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's totally cool if you do. Honestly, I'm still relatively new to this. I've obviously been on a few shows myself as a guest, but this is only my second go around on the hosting side. Really excited about this show that we're calling the Collector's Compass. It is a segment under the Collector's MD umbrella for those listening. So real quick, before we dive in, Denny, for anyone in the audience who might not be as familiar with you or your background, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got into collecting, and what made you start speaking up and creating content around the hobby? And real quick, I want to commend you for the mantle hat. That's an awesome hat.
Yeah, you got your own community there. I have mine as well. So shout out to Mantle for providing us some wonderful spaces for us to kind of get niche down or niche down to more specific, almost like subreddits. So I really appreciate that. It's a very wide open question. I'll try to keep it relatively short just so we can kind of have a more of a conversation. But for the people who are not familiar with me, because they've just entered the hobby more recently, or they didn't get to know me early on when I talked more about it. I grew up collecting my whole life. I'm a 80, well, I'm a 90s kid, not an 80s kid so much, maybe, because when Jordan came onto the scene, at least for basketball, it was right around the time when Shaq's rookie year was at least for me. I didn't collect 86 Fleers. Okay, let me just say it that way. I didn't collect 80s cards. I collected early 90s and late 90s basketball cards. I knew about football, I knew about baseball, and I kind of liked it a little bit, but my main lane is 90s basketball. And so I did stop when I went to college, and everyone talks about kind of taking that break, and I think that's very important, especially for today's kids, where I think a lot of them feel like they're going to collect through college. Believe me, if you have a roommate, you're not going to be, you don't want to keep anything of value in your room. But the thing is, I came back, after I had some disposable income as a young adult, with my first adult paychecks, and then I stopped again when I started a young family. And I know there are some people who are going through young family development and time now, and they're staying in the hobby. And again, you can stay in the hobby while you're in college. You can stay in the hobby while having a young family. I'm definitely not one to tell people what they should or should not do, but I just know for me, those are some really important integral times when I did take a time away from the hobby. But I'm back. I've been back since, I guess, 2022, and I've been making content for about a couple of years. And I'll just kind of briefly say the reason I went from faceless content to in front of camera, behind the camera versus in front of the camera, was just there just wasn't a lot of Asian representation with content creators, and I feel so fortunate to be one of many more now, I guess, in 2025 than there were when I started in 2022 with content. And I didn't come from sneakers or fitness or finance. A lot of other people came from different content spaces into the hobby, but I've been learning on the fly. Like every day I learn something new, and I love it, man. This is like this hobby it definitely has become more than just a hobby.
Awesome, man. You actually already answered a few of the questions that I had as part of our first segment. So at what point did it start to shift into something bigger for you? Like, whether that was hustle, content, pressure, or even something unhealthy. You mentioned getting back into the hobby in 2022. Obviously, the last 5 years or so, more so the last 3 years, really, with Fanatics coming into the fold and all of these other major things happening in our world. When did it really start to shift into something that you felt like you could pursue, as much as you are?
Yeah, so I do want to preface by saying I'm not into the hobby full time. I definitely have a day job that I don't talk about because it's just not pertinent to the hobby. But I know that outside of the hobby, I'm a very pleasant, good, kind person. It's just sometimes social media and the hobby can drive me nuts and bring me to my wits end. That said, when it comes to the hobby, when I thought I could do more of it, I mean, quite simply, I think that I didn't realize, like, I didn't go to shows when I was a kid. I didn't go to card shows in the 90s. I didn't go to card shows in the mid to early 2000s and all that. There's just so much more of it now. Social media definitely connects us more for good and bad. And the barrier to entry is just so low. I remember setting up for my first card show as a vendor, and I should not have set up because I did not have really nice cards. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just wanted to do it just because it seemed fun.
Yeah,
Podcasting, I had no clue how to do it. I just Googled it. I just talked to some folks who helped me along the way, and I just did it myself. Selling on eBay, all you need is, just sign up and you can just buy on eBay, or you can also sell. So the barrier to entry across the board, including breaking, which I know we're going to talk about, is incredibly low. Like people analogize breaking or streaming on whatnot as like, being approved to drive on Uber, right? Anyone
right.
can do it, so long as you're not a criminal. That said, there are some people who are doing it on whatnot where they might have to have a second background check. So
Seriously.
for me, I still remember that first card I sold. I mean, I won't go into the whole story here, but it was kind of like, whoa, like, I'm not a huge flipper. I don't love flipping, but
Mhm.
flipping culture is like everywhere. All the content you see on with these bigger content creators, it's I just made this, I just made that, and it just makes it seem so easy, but it's not. It's not always.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear that. You talk a little bit about collecting. Uh, do you have a card that you own that stands out, not necessarily because it's valuable, but because it means something personal to you?
I know you put that in agenda. I don't want to like leave this spot to go get the card or anything like that. I have some. There are definitely some cards that I just don't even show on that I haven't even made available either for sale or just to show off. I like, I show my collecting journey, but there are definitely some things I just kind of like to enjoy privately. But the card that I always go back to because it really is just such a seminal moment, or was the first time I ever hit, definitely not a case hit. It was a box hit. It was Scoring Kings Jordan. It was just absolutely beautiful. 93, 94 Fleer Ultra Series 2, just absolutely stunning. And I remember pulling that card as a kid in my LCS. Back then we didn't open up boxes and cases. We opened up packs, and I got that in a pack, and I just literally, it felt like the lightning was shooting through my own body. I still remember, I
Yeah.
still get goosebumps thinking about that first big hit. At that time, Beckett said it was like the low column said 50, the high column said 100. And I won't go into the deeper story with that, but there's definitely a story in there about friendships and lost friendships and all that. But
Right.
it's definitely a card that sticks out in my mind a lot.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of us have stories like that. I could think of two very specific moments in time in my life where I experienced that sort of kind of supernatural rush. I mean, as a child, you can't even call it
Yeah,
dopamine because is like
it's
the
different.
brain of a child even developed enough to be able to experience like that sort of that sort of
So
feeling.
adrenaline, yeah, something. It's something. You're totally right about
Yeah,
that, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I grew up in the '90s as well, and Pokemon was obviously very popular. And I had a friend that we basically had a shared collection of sorts. Like I had my
Mhm.
cards, he had his, but we would bring them together, we would swap, and we would do that whole thing. And I remember, vividly saving up my, I guess, allowance money, whatever it was. I was probably 8, 9 years old at the time, maybe even a little younger. But I really wanted to, buy my first booster pack of Pokemon cards, and this was back when they had released the base set. So this must have been either the Shadowless. It wasn't first edition. It was either Shadowless or unlimited base set, and I think there were $7 a pack at whatever local. I don't even know if it was a card shop or if it was just like a convenience store, but they had the booster boxes set
Yeah.
up at the counter, and I saved up for 3 of them. I think I had like 21 bucks in change.
Hmm.
And I was super, super excited after weeks of saving. And I think like at the time, my babysitter would always walk us up and down this road. I grew up in a town, I grew up in a town in New Jersey. We lived there till I was 11, called Teaneck, New Jersey. I don't talk about it too much because we moved when I was 11, and I was in Harrington Park, another town in Jersey, from the time we moved there up until just a couple months ago. Well, I didn't live there, but my parents eventually moved from our childhood house to Pennsylvania, which I'll get more into in a little bit. But anyway, we had a babysitter when we lived in Teaneck, and she would walk us up and down Cedar Lane, it's called, which is like the main road in the town of Teaneck. And it was pretty long walk for a kid, but her whole thing was walking. She never drove us anywhere. We always walked. So anyway, we walked to this convenience store, and I buy the packs, and on our walk back, I'm opening the packs, and on the third pack, I think the first 2 were duds, and the third pack, I don't think I even knew how to do like the energy card shuffle or anything like that.
Yeah.
But sure enough, third pack, lo and behold, Charizard. And I want to
Shadowless
say,
Charizard.
I want to say 90% certain it was the Shadowless version.
Mm.
Uh, you
Mm.
know, I didn't know much about like value or it didn't really exist at the time, right? It was just like you knew that Charizard was the card to get, and that was the grail for any kid, any Pokemon collector. And again, this was in the '90s when it first came out, before any of the hype, before it became what it is today. But at the
Right.
time, I knew it was a big card, but I didn't think about the value or how much I could sell it for. It was just like a core memory that was created in that moment. And so I ended up, bringing it back home. I remember my grandparents came over that night, and I showed it to my grandma, and she was like, "You have to take very good care of that card. You can't bring it to school. You don't want to mess it up." I don't even think I had a top loader to put it in, or like a soft sleeve.
Mhm.
Like I just like didn't, occur to me at the time. Anyway, next
This is
day,
why they're so expensive nowadays. People actually played with those cards
played with the
and
cards, right?
actually use them in sets, and
They're
absolutely.
children. It's a children's toy at the end of the day,
It
right?
is. It is. And
That's what it's
that's, yeah.
designed to be.
$7 seems like I mean, I did not realize they were that expensive. But go ahead.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I'll wrap this up. So
Life is all about the tangents, Alex.
yeah,
I love
you,
it.
you
I
know it.
love it.
So of course, the next day I have to bring it to school, right? I think I was in 3rd grade, 2nd or 3rd grade. So
Oh
however
no. Oh
old you
no.
are when you're 7 or 8, and my mom would lay out my clothes on my bed the night before for the next
Oh
day
no.
for school, and I remember this so vividly because again, it's like a core childhood memory that went from like good to not so good. But she laid out sweatpants, and those sweatpants didn't have pockets in them. So I didn't have pockets to put the chars on. And like as a child, you don't even think of these things. You just you just go.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
So I go to school, I bring it with me. I'm showing it off to the kids in class or whatever, right? And I put it in my lunchbox. Front there, I had this like turquoise lunchbox in the front pocket, put it in there. During lunchtime, I go to, take out my lunch, and I go to check on the card. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's missing. And, I couldn't, I was so innocent, like as a kid, I couldn't even fathom that somebody would steal it. Right. And of course, that's probably what happened. I mean, it's definitely what happened. One of the kids saw it, knew I put it in the lunchbox, swiped it. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember that entire school year, I would look under, like we had, our personal cubbies in the closet or whatever, be checking underneath like clothes and jackets and supplies or whatever, thinking maybe it fell out, maybe I dropped it. Never found it, never saw it again. And that really, really was a tough moment and stuck with me. And I think like it was one of those things that happens early on that just kind of like created this, I don't know, this like path for me where like I knew I'd be on this path again one day, right? And so fast forward to I'm older, collecting, I collect sneakers, memorabilia, things like that. I ended up buying a Charizard before I even got back into the sports card hobby in the pandemic. I found one on eBay. It was a PSA 8 Shadowless. I found it for a couple $100. I mean, it was before like the prices started to spike. So it must have been in like 2018, something like that, 2019.
Yeah.
Bought it back. Well, obviously wasn't the Shadowless or, the card I hit. And we could talk about that in a little bit too, how the cards you actually hit yourself are a lot more meaningful and sentimental than singles that you might buy on eBay. But, I ended up buying it, and I ended up flipping it, of course, down the road a couple years later once everything spiked. Logan Paul made Pokemon super mainstream with his viral videos and such, amongst other influencers. But I eventually sold it. But it was just this whole like sort of full circle moment that really, just made me feel a certain type of way about collecting, about the hobby. So from an early age, I experienced the highs and lows, quite vividly. Some of which we see every single day, this sort of stuff going on where people are getting, robbed at their local card shops or at card shows or wherever. I mean, it's kind of like the darkest part of the hobby that we know and love, but happens all the time, unfortunately. So, I kind of experienced that, learned a really tough lesson very early on in my collecting career, if you will. And then I had mentioned there was one other moment where I experienced that rush again. And this card, I will say, I still have in my collection. And it's not worth very much, but it is a Ja Morant green mosaic that I hit out of the very first blaster box that I ripped for myself, probably around like April or May of 2020, right around the time that I was reintroduced to the hobby. I ordered a few blasters from, I think it was Fanatics actually, or maybe it was like Amazon or Walmart, but I ended up hitting the true rookie Ja Morant green mosaic retail green. At the time, it was a big card, probably worth at least $300, right? That was back when like Zion and Ja were like all the craze, and they were, worth a lot more than they are now for various reasons. But ended up grading it, got a PSA 10, probably worth $40 today, if that. But, one of those cards that now, given everything I've gone through and, the whole initial story I told you, will probably stay in my collection forever. Also love Ja as a player. I know he's done some pretty silly things off the court, but I do love his game and respect and appreciate him as a player. So that's one that, even though it's only worth.
I definitely have, even in my kind of like, again, I won't show you here, and I don't want to pan to like just the whole my podcast studio area, but I definitely I shouldn't do this, but I have put, I'm not saying your card is a mistake, but I have cards that remind me of the highs and the lows and some grading mistakes or things that I've done. For instance, I don't even collect One Piece, but I created a One Piece like base card because I had this Rip to Grade series and with GameStop on my YouTube channel. If you'd like to check out my YouTube channel, it's Denny Cards, and it's a PSA 10, yet it's worth like $4. And I'm like,
Yeah,
why did I grade this? This is not, like this was a mistake. So I should probably like just let go of that baggage or like just forgive myself in a way.
right.
Um, but I have a hard time doing that sometimes because I'm still kind of like struggling through like being my own biggest critic and like because that way no one can like harm me if I'm more critical on myself than other people. But I realize that's just not really healthy and productive. But yeah, I've had some mistakes. I've had some cards where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep this, and just I'm like, wow, it's not that I had to flip it or sell it earlier, but I'm just like, I why did I do that? So,
Right.
but you know what? That said, um, I'm not trying to derail us more off the agenda they have here, but I gotta tell my story. I wasn't gonna tell it, but now that
Tell
you
your
told
story,
your
man.
story,
The floor is yours. I went off for maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. So
well,
by all
I'll be
means.
shorter than that. But here's the thing, okay? you know, Tip of my tongue when you were talking about that Shadowless Charizard was, do you still have the card? Clearly you don't, and I'm really sorry
Right.
for that.
That's okay.
I
Everything happens for a
similarly,
reason.
well, here's the thing. I similarly do not have the Jordan that I pack pulled because when I moved from New York to Fort Lauderdale when I was like in high school, and by the way, I wish that everyone wishes that they were younger, right? I mean, everyone in their 50s wants to be in their 40s. Everyone in their 40s wants to be in 30s, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But everyone who's a under 18 wants to be over 18 anyway.
Well, of course.
Everyone wants to be what they're not. So
Right.
I say that because I missed the Pokemon craze. When Pokemon started in 99 2000, like that's when I was like going to college, and I was not even collecting basketball cards, so I wasn't collecting Pokemon cards. And I definitely remember at that time being like, oh, is this for this is for like the kids who are like little kids. So I didn't collect any of it because I think you're in your 30s, right?
I'm
So
35. Yeah.
yeah, so you were squarely in that time, and so I missed out on that. But
Yeah.
when I made the move to Florida, like it's anytime you move as a kid, you it's hard to make friends, right? So I remember there were some people who you always have the kids you remember who were nice to you and not nice to you and all this stuff, right? So I won't belabor like who it was or say their name because I have said their name in the past and I'm like, it doesn't it's not productive. But it's someone I don't know anymore, but it was someone who didn't care too much for me or didn't like what was not a good friend. But as soon as I showed him my cards, he was like, oh my gosh, like you're so, like let's be friends, let's be friends. And the thing was, he never wanted to trade. He always just kept staring at my Scoring King, and he was like, "Man, that is such a beautiful card. That is such a beautiful card, man. One day I want to have a card like that. One day." And so like what I did not realize, and of course my memory could be completely distorted and murky, and not it's just the real, it's just the perception of the reality or anything like that, right? So maybe this is not what actually happened or what I thought happened, but no, I'm sorry, this is what I thought happened. I thought that he was trying to befriend me and then really try to like take advantage of me and use his friendship in order to get that card. And so he guilted me, and because I remember over and over, like almost every time we hung out, he would talk about the cards or my cards or want to look through my cards. He didn't have a lot of cards, but he was just kind of like this guy who was just very he got a lot of people to do a lot of things for him. So he basically was like, man, like he said a bunch of stuff, and I felt so guilty and just being like this quiet, nice kid who wanted to have someone as a friend was like, hey, you know what? If you really like it, like I'm gonna give it to you, or I'll gift it to you. He's like, really? Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Like, thank you so much, man. Like you're the best, you're so cool. Like literally a week later, he like pretended like I didn't even exist.
Oh man.
So there went my Jordan, right? And I only have now one copy that's a PSA 7. I in some fantasy of mine where I have a ton of money and I have money that grows on the money tree in the backyard. It's I want to buy every single scoring king I can in any grade so that I could get that specific card. And that's why your story really resonated with me, because I'm like, I bet you would give anything that you currently have from a collection standpoint, not your family, not your friends, but from a collection standpoint. If someone could say, just provenance, that specific card that was taken from you, like I know I don't know if I would get every single thing away, but I would give up a lot, like, to get that specific card back, because it means
Yeah.
that much more. And of course, it's not serial numbered, right? I mean, your Shadowless Charizard, not serial numbered. There's no way to tell what number it was. Like if it was 1 out of 999, you could say
Right.
that's the serial number. But with the that card being what it is, I have no clue where it is, and I could only hope if I buy 1,000 of them, I might not even have a 10% chance of it being the actual card.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's kind of like what collecting and sports cards does to people, right? It makes you a little bit crazy. You were so willing to give it to your friend, and then when something happened that, just sparked that emotion inside of you, you felt like you needed to have it back, right? It's almost like this illusion that you create.
It's
internally.
I don't watch old black and white movies and all that, but Citizen Kane, Rosebud, it's absolutely the chase of it's yes, having actual physical representations of players and teams and sports that you like is great, but just having like emotion, like there's some people, I mean, straight up, they're here just for the money. Let's be very clear. There are people who are flippers, breakers, just all sorts of people who do not care about the actual cards.
Right.
No one could ever say to me that I do not care about cards, because I absolutely do.
Yeah, I respect it, man. Cool. So we kind of ran over a little bit on that topic, but that's totally fine.
That's my time. I'll see you.
We'll see episode 3 next week.
Yeah.
No, but let's shift over to where the hobby is currently, where it is right now. So
sure.
I'm going to start with a little question, thought starter. We can just kind of go back and forth, but what's been feeling off about the current state of the hobby? Let's unpack what's frustrating both of us. And obviously that's kind of a loaded question because there's a lot of different things that are happening. So I will also caveat a few other or a few more details here pertaining to this topic. But we can get into influence or how influence works in this space, where it's helpful, where it's dangerous, and where it feels performative. And let's also talk a little bit about how this stuff impacts newer or younger collectors, especially, and what traps we see people falling into. I'll let you kick it off.
It's all 3 of those questions. It's all one answer, and it's 2 words for me. It's social media.
Yeah, man.
It is the best thing to bring people together, and it is the best thing to tear people apart. People get polarized. We see it in all other aspects outside of the hobby. I won't name all of the things, but you all get it. I mean, social media has a wonderful place. Like, back in the mid 2000s, there were just sports card forum, SCF was the thing that I had. It wasn't even Blowout Forum. It was like sports card forum. Yeah. And you would open up packs and you would write a blog post about what you got and maybe do a picture of like from your Canon Elf camera. It was like so traditional, old school, like not even, you might as well have been like writing about your card in like calligraphy, So I know that social media now is what really brings people together. Like you and I could not be doing this if it wasn't for like the internet, social media, all this stuff.
Right.
But having said that, it's also created this ability for people to get a lot of FOMO, a lot of, so much flex culture, and especially impacting the younger collectors where they feel like they have to level up really quick. Like they just want to skip past all the steps, right? They don't want Donruss. They don't want hoops. They want immaculate. They want flawless. They want national treasures. Like they want to skip all of the, they don't want to open up. They don't want to get a box hit. They want a case hit. Right. So
right.
I remember as a kid, I wanted a box hit. I didn't want it. There was not even such a thing as a case hit back from what I remember. So 2 words, social media. And so I'll let you speak.
Yeah, man. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think we're both seeing some of the same things. It's so much noise. It's so much pressure, and this sense that it's getting harder to tell what's actually meaningful versus what's being pushed, right? Social media has completely taken over that narrative. It dictates what's hot, what's not, and honestly, like what we're supposed to even like, right? We talked about like what fueled us as kids, whether that be Pokemon or Michael Jordan. Now it's all about whatever social media tells us. You've got breakers, platforms, influencers, again, all shaping what gets ripped, what's hyped, and what we chase. That
Mhm.
flex culture that you mentioned and the manufactured FOMO, it's just become so exhausting. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. Some people might be too deep in it to really say something or perhaps consciously realize it. But it's the newer and younger collectors that I mentioned before who are the most vulnerable to that, to realizing that
Absolutely.
they're not they don't even realize that they're being steered or manipulated by the marketers, by the breakers, by the platforms.
Yeah,
And
because you don't know what you don't know. Absolutely.
exactly. And I just think this is a topic that just really deserves the spotlight. We really need to unpack it. Um, you know, influence, it works in the hobby, in good ways, but also in very dangerous ways. It can be helpful, but at the same time, you know, so many people fall into these traps, and it's so incredibly difficult to avoid, especially again when you're really, really deep into it, right? You have all these product releases coming out, and it used to be like once a week, right? Wednesday was like release day for everything. Forget about it. Now with Fanatics, you have release days on Thursdays, you have release days on Fridays. Heck, you even have release days on the weekends. It's gotten to a point where like it's become financially impossible unless you're like some millionaire or like trust fund baby of some sort to keep up with it all, right? Like nobody can financially afford to rip box after box after box, especially as these prices have just continuously risen year after year after year. And you'd think like with the ebbs and flows of the singles market, right? Like we saw a major boom during the pandemic where singles shot up to record breaking levels. We were seeing base cards of Zion and Luca hit outrageous prices that we had never seen before. And that obviously came crashing down. But now with the resurgence of all of these generational players that you have no choice but to chase, the Wembys, the Caitlin Clarks, the Cooper Flags, the Jaden Daniels, there's always somebody new, somebody hot that the sports world is already hyping. So you're already seeing it on ESPN and Fox Sports and Bleacher Report and wherever else you're consuming your sports news. But you're also seeing it in your feed from the breakers, from the platforms. And so it's inevitable that you're going to feel a sense of FOMO if you're not involved in some capacity, right? Everybody's showcasing their Jaden Daniels hits and their collections and their PCs, and you want a piece of that. You want to join the fun, you want to join the excitement and the camaraderie. And it just, for some people, it can be so draining mentally, emotionally, financially. It's just so easy to burn out. And I can tell you firsthand, that's exactly what led me to a lot of my struggles. So yeah, like how do we overcome that? How do we create a healthier hobby that you know doesn't have to be manipulated and completely shaped by exterior motives?
So I am a content creator. I have been called an influencer. I don't like that word. I know it has negative connotations. I know that said that I have inspired people to have their own podcast, have their own YouTube channel, have their own, be more front facing on Instagram, set up in card shows. Again, the barrier to entry of all of this is so low. I've broken a little bit, but I have a breaking history or breaking career that was very short lived. So I've done almost everything except for like have my own card company, like, great curator with like Saturday morning cards. Cause even he showed, hey, if you have an idea and you go get your IPs, your intellectual property licenses, like you can actually do this, which sounds absolutely insane to me. Cause that's like probably the last thing. I guess I should say I don't own an LCS, or I never own an LCS. eBay store is like the main way I can say I own a quote unquote shop. But having said that, when it comes to all of this, like I know that it's weird for me as a content creator on Instagram, mostly more than TikTok and YouTube and all this stuff, to say just delete Instagram, but it's good to take breaks. I took
Yeah.
a 3 to 4 month break in 2024 because it just got overwhelming and it got the best of me.
Absolutely.
There have been times when I've wanted to delete it from my phone this year, and I've also taken breaks where I didn't delete it, where I would just not post, or I would just, I think there's a part of social media that makes people want to share their most impulsive thoughts, but sometimes it's good to just not post something. And as someone who does prolific posting and content sharing, I know that I've learned to figure out, what's a healthy balance or healthy modicum, so that I preserve my sanity. So
Yeah.
I think in general, if it's gotten too bad for some people, whether it's social media and just salivating over the next Jane Daniels, or right now it's like the Lamine Yamals, is
Yeah.
to it's crazy for an Instagram content creator to say it, but you gotta delete Instagram. If Fanatics Live or whatnot is taking all of your money, all of your disposable income, and dipping into family finances, especially if you have like dependents and a family, you gotta delete it, or you gotta do Collectors MD, like plug you guys, right? I mean, you gotta do
Yeah.
something, because you can't just throw money at something, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? So you just can't just keep doing that. And so, but people don't want to hear that. People just want to hear lollipops, sunshine, and rainbows. Everything is that's gambler's fallacy, right? You're
Right.
just one hit away. You're just one bet away from the big one. You're not.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the illusion that's created with gambling and with casinos and sports books, and it's carried over directly into the hobby. And that's something we obviously talk about quite a bit with Collectors MD, and getting on that road to recovery. And you brought up some really good points, Denny. I think taking breaks is a monumental step in recovery. And when you feel that sense of burnout and you're starting to really drain yourself financially, mentally, and emotionally, and it's starting to impact things like relationships and work and family, that's I think an indicator that you don't necessarily need to quit. We don't preach abstinence the same way other recovery programs do, because we do still love the hobby. We always talk about that, but it's an opportunity for you to just take a step back, self-reflect, and take personal inventory. Think about, why do I collect? Why am I doing this in the first place? What motivates me? And you just want to make sure that you have your goals and your actions in order, and ultimately you're collecting with intention and not compulsion. That's something that, again, we
Intention.
preach
Absolutely.
every day at Collectors MD. So
That
this
that
is
is so important. That is so
a
important.
perfect
Intentional. Can
intentional.
I can I
Yeah.
can I say one more thing? Is
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I'm wearing the hat. We both have communities there.
Yeah.
I'm not paid by them. I know some of the like owners, or the
Yeah.
the
Evan.
employees. Yeah, like I know some of the folks, and like I'm very supportive of what they're doing. But here's the thing: did not get paid to say this, and I'm not expecting anything in return from them. Mantle is a community where it is for collectors, where people get to share their hits or share what they're doing, but it's not hype train. It's not, oh, look at like get into this break. There's no like advertising. There's no like marketing machine within Mantle, and I don't know if that'll change, and I don't know how it's going to evolve. But in its current iteration, it's almost like slow mode. And I will admit, as a content creator, like I don't like getting, say like 5 likes on a post of a really cool card that I'm excited to share, right? I wish there was a bigger community, and I wish I get more dopamine rush from like the clicks and yeses. But I also know that like I don't like it. That's not what it's about, right? It's like that's my own social media addiction, right? There's like the hobby sports card and money addiction, and there's like the ego validation social media addiction. And so for me, it is kind of like slow goings, and it's almost like a more, it's probably kind of like how things were like with the sports card forum, blowout forums, kind of like bullet, online boards. And so I really love the idea of something that is just kind of more curated. You get to enjoy your collection. A lot of people, like I've been posting cards that I've had for years that I never showed on Instagram because I just thought, oh, like with the flex cultures, people would laugh at it. I mean, my nickname for a little bit that people called me was Denny No Cards. And initially it stung. I'm like, man, what the heck are they talking about? But I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I know it's okay. I'm not going to over leverage myself and put my family in financial dire straits because someone said, call me Denny No Cards, and I got to go get these huge cards. It's like, I love this hobby, but I absolutely will not overextend myself financially for it.
Where are you on here?
Where am I? Where
There you
am
are.
I?
There you are. Yeah, man, we've both been posting quite a bit on Mansell. I think I agree. I think it's a really great community. It's a really great opportunity for you to curate your content and let it, shine through a collector's lens, through a purist lens, as opposed to, the mainstream platforms like Instagram and TikTok
Yeah.
and all of these others that have completely consumed us. So I agree. This is not a paid advertisement by any means, but Mansell has, really done some great things in the hobby. And I was fortunate to be one of the early adapters here. And so we make sure that we syndicate all content, the daily reflections, the educational posts, the spotlights, the
Yeah.
podcast. I'll be posting on here too.
Awesome.
You can get your resources here, recovery guide and everything else. It's really, really a great place. So with that, I think this is a really good segue to, let me just close this out. Let's get back into that mode. Okay. To discussing this next topic, which is mental health, pressure, and compulsiveness. So let's talk a little bit about the mental side of all this. We already kind of covered some of it, the burnout, the overspending, the dopamine chases. But let's reflect on moments where we maybe personally felt a little bit out of control, or like the hobby wasn't necessarily serving us. And what are some strategies that we've both personally tried in our, guess you could call it, hobby careers, where we've tried new things, or we set boundaries, or we did something that basically was a proactive means towards change.
Absolutely. So I want to say first, you do a fantastic job at the daily reflections. I mean, really, it's so well written. You
I
really are
appreciate that,
an
man.
excellent writer. So
Thank
I
you.
love
Thank
that
you,
because
Denny.
that's like the part that's like that's the original content. Content creators. It's like go back to again the hieroglyphics or calligraphy. It's just like
Yeah,
original content creators were
journalism.
written word. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna do a little bit of a story time here, which is but before I share my story, I haven't gotten into break in a really long time, but I do rip wax. I do
yeah.
not rip a ton of wax. I actually have a lot of sealed wax. I've actually had a lot of sealed wax that I haven't shown people, and I'm just sitting on. One prime example is like
Hey,
the
man, that takes a lot of self control to sit on sealed wax.
yeah, it is.
You can't put that. You can't put that anywhere near me.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah.
forget about it. I have
Um
self control.
I should post about this soon, but because I think she's coming back from injury. But when Caitlin Clark had her it was like a Bowman Now campaign or something where you bought like this box for $850,
Yeah,
and I was looking recently online because I was thinking about, well, do I rip it? Do I sell it sealed? And it's like over $2,000. I'm like, whoa, that's awesome! Like that's a come up. I didn't realize I didn't realize it was a $2,000, but yeah, like I'm still sitting on that and some other things that I just have where I'm just like, I don't know. I'm kind of weird that way. Like I like to collect. I like to hoard. I don't know. I love the idea of the potential of something in there. So I don't break. I don't get into breaks. I don't I'm not a breaker, which is funny because breaking, I guess, back in the old days before it became a capitalistic machine of, making margin and making more money off per team or per player. The player breaks and color breaks are absolutely insane. I think that's like the worst thing in the world in breaking, but the
Yeah.
breakers love it because they can just fractionalize even further. But that's besides the point. The breaks in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when it was before Instagram and it was like Facebook or some of those forums. I mean, go ahead and talk to I don't know if you would ever have the other Alex, the one who spells it Alex, Army ATC. He
Yeah.
I remember watching some of his videos on YouTube where he's in the full military gear and he's ripping open insane boxes because 30 people wanted one team each or two teams each, and he didn't make money off of it. And people trusted him. It wasn't live stream. It was like literally recorded, and he would like ship people at their cards, and people would pay for shipping and their car and their teams like split evenly. I mean, imagine a utopia, like, right? Like where breaking is actually like nonprofit, where you literally the breaker doesn't make any money off of it, and they're just making
I've
the
thought
product
about that.
cheaper. Oh, I
Yeah.
actually did it. I actually did it in late December as a thank you to my followers on YouTube.
That's
We
awesome, man.
opened up, we did a case break of 23-24 Phoenix basketball blasters. We got nothing. I mean, the case hit was like a $5 card, but there wasn't downtowns and all this stuff. It was just I just teams were like $20, like literally for a full case of blasters. And I remember thinking to myself, I've never opened up a case of anything in my whole life. I just want to do this and get the experience. And I just did it for at cost. It was literally an at cost break where I broke down the supplies, the shipping. I mean, like when I say $20, it's like $25 per team with shipping. Like it was so much fun. Having said that, I mean, and that was like 6 months ago, which in social media world and hobby world is like 10 years. Um, I, I, recently in my YouTube content, I opened up way more cards than I wanted to. And this is where I'm going to share my struggle or my frustration. I did not put my family in a financial, hole or a situation, but people who follow my content know I am very much budget conscious. I try to be very mindful of my spending limits. Have I gone over? I definitely remember early on, especially when you're so impressionable and you don't know what's going on. Like I was buying on Whatnot and I was definitely buying more than I should have. But like more recently, because back then I didn't know any better, but now I should know better. So just like a month or two ago, I was at my local Ace Hardware because they carry retail, and so they had value pack boxes or fat pack boxes, whatever they're called, and I was chasing downtowns, and each box was like $250, and for some people listening, that's like nothing. That's like one team in a break or whatever, right? So but for
Right.
me it's like a lot. And I remember saying to myself, I'm gonna open up these boxes until I get a downtown. And I thought silly me, I thought I was gonna get it in like two boxes and that I would like get a downtown that was worth $400 or $500 and get the cost of the box.
Right.
I ripped the first box. It was absolutely horrendous. Just nothing. Second box, nothing. And then I went back to the well and I was like, you know what? There's like two more boxes left on the shelf. It's got to be in there, right? It's that gambler's fallacy. If it wasn't in the first two, it's got to be in the next two or the next one. And so I opened up the third one. Again, nothing. And then in the fourth one, in the very last pack of the fourth box, I hit not a downtown, but I hit a Bo Nix uptown.
Mm.
And I was not happy. I was relieved. I was sick to my stomach. If you watch that
Yeah.
video, I am like my voice is trailing. I remember feeling queasy. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Could I, from my hobby funds, could I afford $1,000 hit? Yes, I could. But it was just the fact that I went beyond what I thought I would, which was, I'll do a box or
Right.
two and then I'll call it quits. But in my
Right.
head, I was like, there's only two more boxes there. I should try. I should try to go for it. And then of course it wasn't a case hit of a downtown. It was an uptown, which at that time was like $500 the bonus. And then if you graded it, it was like 1,000. I mean, now you could have the card for like less than $200. Um, you know, so it's the market's gone down, the hype's gone down, right? Because it's on to the next one. The optic is so 2000 and late, you know. So,
Yeah. Uh,
but that's
yeah.
that's definitely a moment where I felt like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing?
Yeah, man, that's definitely like one of the wildest parts of the hobby. And I actually remember you telling me about that story, I think before you went public with it. And I was very grateful that you had confided in me and had told me about that moment for you. And you know, what you talked about is something that I've experienced countless times, right? And I think a lot of people, like you said, might be able to relate. It's how hitting the big card doesn't actually feel the way that you thought it would, right? Like, yeah, in the moment, it's this huge rush that you get. You get that dopamine spike, of course. You get that let's go adrenaline, but then almost instantly it fades. And sometimes it's followed by this like weird emptiness or even regret, especially if you were chasing. And it's like you finally got what you were chasing, but now what? The high's gone. You've probably spent way more than you had committed to, which, whether or not you can financially afford to do it, it's
Mhm.
also kind of like it's a mental thing where, like, as an adult, you went past your
I
limit.
lost control. Yep.
You lost
Yeah.
control. You passed the boundary. And
Yeah.
once you do it once, it's scary because
It's
then
easy, right?
you're afraid that you can lose control again.
Yes.
And that's a
Yes.
huge part of this
Yes.
this journey, this path towards recovery, right? Is limiting yourself, having the guardrails in place, having that safety net to make sure that it doesn't happen again. You don't make the same mistake twice. So
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know
if I didn't, I wanted the steak, I wanted the downtown, but I ended up getting a burger. I got the uptown, and
right, you
I'm
got the
thinking to
burger. I like
myself,
that.
if you're hungry, I got the burger, but what if I didn't get a burger? What if I didn't get an uptown in that fort? I don't
Or
know.
dude, what if you got like the Sunday Kings of like Mike Evans that's worth like $30,
Yeah, like what would have
That's
happened in
also
my
considered
head?
a
I
case hit.
don't. Jeez.
It
Yeah.
is. The Sunday
Yeah. No.
Kings.
Or
They used to have the
Rookie
Blazers,
Kings. Yeah.
mythical.
Yeah.
They throw in all
Mythical.
these Fugazi,
Oh gosh.
Darius.
So I don't know what I would have done. They were out of, they still had retail boxes. They had value boxes, retail boxes. They had other,
Yeah.
they had basketball. You could have gone in there. I could have gone in for a plunger, and I could have left with, a $5,000 plunger, right, from the hardware store.
Yeah.
But it is scary to me. You know, I think timing is so important because it's almost like golf. There's this scene in Tin Cup where Kevin Costner is like, give me another ball, give me another ball," and he keeps trying to hit that, right, that chip shot or whatever it was. But if he hit it in the first one, he would have been like, "Yeah, I'm the man, I'm awesome." But with each one, he was losing his, humility, or he was gaining humility, I guess, but he was losing his like confidence,
Right.
and he was losing
Right.
his self. And I just think to myself, like in my little story, let's say I quote unquote picked the correct box because I could have my choice. If I picked the correct box in that first box, I hit the Bo Nix Uptown,
Yeah.
I would have been like, dopamine hit, awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
smart. I know how to pick. I'm a good lucky. My hot hands. Which I hate the hot hands thing, but that's breakers.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm so good at this, and I would not have had a sense of relief. I would have just been like, oh, like this is great. This is so easy. It's so much fun. But I
Right.
think it was like so good for me to get to that fourth box. Not that I wanted to, but it was good for me to have that humility or feel that sickness, almost like smoking too many cigarettes when you're young, to like feel like I don't want to smoke any more cigarettes. But
Right.
like it's like this thing where I don't want to do that again, right? Like the
Totally.
next time I go to my hardware store or whatever, like I just don't want to make that content again. Maybe I did a little bit for content, right? For that ego part. Oh, I
Yeah.
want to hit
You
that.
justify it that way. A lot of
Justify it.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's such a brutal cycle. And then, of course, the emotional crash just hits hard even when you win. And, me personally, I've had those moments where I hit a monster, but still feel sick after. Like there are times where I'm chasing and I literally say to myself, please stop the bleeding. Like
mm,
hit that card already. Like, please, because it's like the box finishes and then you got to go and buy another.
yeah.
And the sickest, and this is insidious. The sickest I would feel is when I didn't get the hit that I was looking for. I didn't get the hit to put in my personal collection or to justify all of the money I had just spent. And either I ran out of funds, like I couldn't pay for any more boxes, or the breaker I was ripping with, or the store I was buying from ran out of product. And
Right.
I hit like a dead end, a roadblock, and it was like, that's it, you're done for the day. Because like my mind, my body just was craving that dopamine hit so much so that when I couldn't achieve it, when I couldn't access it, there was this like, I mean, it's like you get tunnel vision, and everything goes red. It's like, it's a crazy feeling. And as an addict who's experienced that with sports cards as well as gambling, it's not a good thing. And if you've ever experienced something like that, even to a lesser degree, even a fraction of what I just tried to illustrate, because it is really hard to articulate those feelings that you feel in the moment. But if you've ever felt any of that, again, Collectors MD is here for you, and you're certainly not alone. So with that, let's pivot to the next topic, which is accountability and the need for reform. I think this is a good segue. So let's talk a little bit about what accountability means in this space, and why it's so hard to have those conversations with people without people getting defensive. Breaking culture. I mean, that's a huge one. What needs to change? What would actual regulation or reform look like to us? We've talked about that quite a bit on here, or just in general in the first 2.5 months or so of Collectors MD coming into this space. Another thing that kind of falls into this is the idea of licensing odds disclosures, and why collectors themselves need to be a part of the push. And I'm not saying that we all need to get together and like sign a petition and send it to Michael Rubin and get them to, change their platform and the systems and all this. It's not going to happen. We got to be realistic about this. But what are ways that we can overcome some of these struggles and challenges that we're facing and coping with ourselves, without perhaps, requiring for these platforms or for the hobby as a whole to make any drastic change? Like, let's get creative.
I like to be creative, but with this one, it's like parts of it I can answer, parts I can't, mainly because I just don't get into breaks. I don't know breaking culture much. I know, there's some breakers who are friends of mine in the hobby, and I like what they do. And I try to figure out who's got good intentions and who doesn't, but it's hard sometimes, right? My own compass is sometimes a little bit askew, but I don't know how it would look like. I don't know if regulation reform is the right path. I know that there should be some more guardrails. I don't know what that looks like. I think people who are much more into breaking culture and know the space much better than I do would be better to answer this. But the part that I do want to speak on a little bit more is that last one about odds disclosure and collectors being part of the push. And again, much like Mantle wearing the hat, I've done some things with, like I know some people in Topps Fanatics. I'm not purporting to be close with them. They never paid me. I'm not an affiliate, not sponsor, anything like that. I have nothing involved with their corporate doings. I just like to play in the space and have fun and be involved in things, right? And just have cool experiences. That said, what I'm about to say is going to sound very like, fanboy, or I'm defending them, and I'm not. But I will say that Fanatics, when it comes to odds disclosure, which is what Topps does, so by extension Fanatics, but odds and auditing, which just realize that's odd and auditing is like kind of similar. That's more than what Panini's done. Okay, and this is not me hating on Panini and being a Fanatics fanboy, but auditing by a third party, and I know for some people it's not enough, or it's not real, or they're still covering things up, or it's like, like aren't they biased too? I can't speak to the underpinnings of all of that. I can't, but I know that auditing is a step towards the right direction, and that I would rather have auditing than no auditing.
Yeah.
I would rather have odds than no odds, because I know Panini. I cannot believe they got away with it for so long to just be like, yeah, we got case hits and we got stuff in these packs and boxes and cases, but you're gonna have to figure it out.
Right.
Beckett, go make a checklist for us. We'll tell you what the parallels are or what the serial numbers are, but we can reprint whatever, like when you have no odds and no concrete checklist, you can print anything forever. It doesn't matter because you will print
Totally.
until the printing machines run dry and run out of ink. And that is sometimes what we see with the bad QC with Panini. Does Topps and Fanatics have bad QC? Absolutely. Again, I'm not trying to say that they are the best thing since sliced bread, but I know that with the money and the marketing machine, I don't, the whole marketing machine is a whole separate thing, and I won't even get into that. But I know with the investments there that Fanatics is trying to make at least, and they're actually listening to collectors, and they're actually like doing things that make us feel somewhat heard, like Mike Mahan going on I forget what the two gentlemen that they have a podcast, and he was talking about the Topps black parallel and all this stuff, and he's having an actual conversation. You can't even point to a single person that embodies Panini like as a spokesperson. Like, this is a multi-million-dollar company that has no PR department. It seems like
It's
emails and
crazy,
calls
man.
go unanswered, redemptions go unanswered.
For
At least
years.
Topps and Fanatics are trying to have, we're going to redeem redemptions, or we're going to get rid of redemptions, or we're going to
Right.
do this, we're going to do that. They have plans. That's like an adult. That's like, that's how big boys operate in a big boy industry.
Sure.
Not just hey, we printed stuff. Do you want it? Open them up and see what you get, Johnny.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not good enough.
100%. And honestly, we talk a lot about reform and how this industry needs to change. What we don't talk enough about is how, Fanatics specifically has made a lot of strides in the last couple of years, for the better. They've definitely added some features, they've added some layers that have helped the hobby in a lot of ways. And I don't want to take away from that whatsoever. But I think, one of the biggest challenges with the whole concept of reform, and we created this whole industry reform proposal initiative that we published on Collectors MD, and we've shared on social media, and we're trying to get the attention of these higher powers. But at the end of the day, we can't just wait around for them to do something, right? We have to regulate ourselves. And if they were going to regulate the platforms, they would have already done that. There is no governing body overlooking. There's nobody telling them that they have to do it. There's nobody saying that you have to create extra guardrails or guidelines or cool off periods or deposit limits. Why should they do that? Why should they, risk losing money, risk having to pay employees and focus on new projects and fund department initiatives and things like that if they don't have to, right? So their incentive is ultimately to keep us ripping, not to slow us down. That's their job. So I think maybe the answer isn't necessarily just hoping the platforms are going to change, but like I said before, I use the word creative, getting creative with how we protect ourselves. So like if there are no built-in self-exclusion or deposit limits, what if we can bring a third-party tool into the mix? There's stuff that exists already in the gambling world. There's an app called Gamban. I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
No.
but it basically blocks gambling apps from users' IP address. So if you were to download the software, pay for the monthly prescription, subscription. I think it's $20 a month, something like that. It's not overly priced or anything like that, but it allows for you to block the apps completely. And not only does that prevent you from accessing the apps and potentially losing money by taking, part in an activity that, could be detrimental to you, but it also gives you peace of mind. It eliminates the possibility where you could go down that path. And a lot of people deal with it all day long, where they're fighting with themselves. You have that devil on your shoulder where it's like, you got to place that bet. Once your partner goes to sleep, once your wife falls asleep later, like, we're gonna play some live blackjack. We're gonna do, like, and when you're constantly fighting with yourself internally, it can become really, really stressful. And I've experienced that myself. So what Gamban does is it provides that safety net, that security blanket. So why can't we start adapting those for breaking platforms? Why can't we reach out to them and say, hey, there are these apps like Whatnot and Fanatics and Loop, even eBay or any other app for that matter. I mean, why not even introduce like social media apps like Instagram or Facebook or TikTok?
Yeah, you can break your phone with social
Brick
media
your
stuff,
phone.
and
Yeah.
you can break. I mean, here's the thing: they're already. I don't know about Android, but in iPhone you can absolutely set app limits. But and I've done it myself, where you go, all right, man, 2 hours. That's the max you can be on Instagram, Denny. I tell myself, and I put the app. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm, New Year's Day, January 1st, and I'm a new me, and it's like, you get the notification. Hey, you got 15 minutes left. All right.
Yeah.
It's only 2 p.m. Okay. You got 5 minutes left. Okay. All right. You got 1 minute left, and then it goes, time's up. And guess what? All you got to do is just go ignore or
Yeah.
mute notification.
Yeah.
When you
So
have something where it's $20 and it's an actual thing that blocks your IP, that's a more serious. That
right.
is like actually having a real guardrail. But who, like, a lot of people just want to live in denial.
Yeah. 100%. Um, yeah, there are two things that I want to say in response to that. One is, it's obviously easier said than done, especially for people who have tendencies where they might not be as resistant to some of these capabilities or restrictions. And then on the other hand, addiction is a real thing. Addicts will be addicts, and unfortunately, there's a side to this where addicts can find a way around it, whether that be using, and I don't even want to throw out ideas, but you can kind of use your imagination using somebody else's phone, and that's the only one I'll mention. But at the end of the day, what I want to sort of put a bow on this with is, we can't force the industry to grow up overnight, right? We're not going to make we're not going to be able to move mountains anytime soon with Collectors MD. But what we can do is start building support systems outside of it. Again, I want to preface, it's not about killing the hobby. It's about making it sustainable so that people don't get crushed by it the way so many people already have.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. I love my fellow collectors. I love the passion. I mean, you can never say that, true collectors don't have just that deep burning passion in them for the cards and for just, maybe life, and, they just like collecting and all that. But like, I just don't know, collecting inherently is like a very selfish thing, because you're collecting for yourself. You don't share a binder with a buddy, right? It's like your PC is your PC. It's in your home. It's in your vault. It's in your whatever. So I know some people like to share things, or they have, I won't even get into all the different ways that people try to do that. But when in general, it is a very like, hey, this is my stuff. It's my toys.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get like this collective mindset, or just have everyone kind of rally and say, okay, let's all, again, petitions, they're not going to work. Change.org is not going to work. Public, whatever, just all this stuff. That said, much as I love collectors, I know there are some people, especially online, especially in social media, you could never do anything to make them happy. They're just a core small group of people who, nothing, no matter how you could literally be like, okay, you be the CEO of Fanatics, and then they'll do things and they'll be like, oh, it still sucks. Well, you're in control. Do what you want to do. They will
Yeah.
never be happy. They will not know true happiness because of just the way they are. And I feel bad for
Right.
that. That said, you also can't make everyone happy, right? And so
Right.
I won't belabor the point, but I just feel like, there are things happening, and I would love for things to continue happening at a quicker pace too. But the last thing I'll say about this topic is, why the heck is it, and I'm trying not to curse, why the heck is it that when we see all these terrible, embarrassing, disgusting, filthy, abhorrent uh streams and breaks. And I'm not just talking like language or this one person saying this one thing about a hypothetical daughter. I'm just talking about like some things I've seen on social media that are just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, man.
It's all happening on Whatnot. It's not happening on Loop. You don't see a Loop streamer do that. You don't see a
Right.
Fanatics live streamer do that. You don't see Drip streamer do that. You don't see Facebook streamer, Twitch streamer, YouTube breaker. It's always 100, almost 99.9% Whatnot streamers.
Right. Well, two things. One, you, Denny, are a walking thesaurus. Your synonyms are just on point. And then two, you brought up a really good point earlier. I like the analogy you made with Whatnot and Uber, where like anybody can just be an Uber driver these days, and there's like no verification. A 10-year-old can just sign up and for Whatnot and just start selling. And if you get ripped off or if you get robbed, then they'll refund you, and that's that. It's the Wild West, man, and we need to see more accountability from Whatnot specifically. I couldn't agree more.
Maybe one last thing I'll say about this. We say these words very cavalierly, and thank you for saying the thesaurus. Like I didn't mean to, but like I think when I first started making content, I didn't want to make it too highbrow, or I didn't want to speak too over people's heads. And I'm not saying I dumb things down, but I think I'm just showing my true self. Like this is, I'm passionate about this, and I think certain words mean or have better context than other ones, and that's why I use certain words for specific reasons. That said, we're so cavalier with the words, with the terms Wild Wild West and carnival games, because let's be very frank. Like, I mean, it's easy to just say, oh, it's carnival games, but carnival games are impossible to win. There are professional carnival game YouTube content creator maker. Like they are like, let me tell you how impossible it is to make a free throw in this basket because the rim is bent and the ball is super inflated. And this is not a regular free throw. That means there's an illusion and a perception of winning more than you think you have, or more than you actually have. And so that's what's going on with some of these breaks and the promises that are made by breakers. Again, so true. Good breakers, good for the hobby. Bad breakers, bad for the hobby. I've always said that.
Yeah. I actually started to write down platform pet peeves. These are words or phrases that breakers say that drive me nuts.
Oh, that'd be a great concept. We take those. Bang.
All right, here we go. Yeah, we take those. I've got it's a short list because I don't write it too often, but we got paid, exclamation point.
You're paid.
Chat. How's your ... So like you hit a Jaden Daniels. How's your Jaden Daniels?
Oh yeah, have a
five.
day.
Cannot stand that.
Yeah.
People in the chat saying something like buyer, sheesh, but like sheesh. Can't stand that one.
Kids.
After winning an auction, nice take. Even if the person overpaid by 50, I was gonna say like 200%, nice take. Yeah. And then lastly, what a steal. It's like, bro, just spent $4,000 on the Browns, and homie saying, what a steal. I mean, it's like, it's insane. God. It's all an illusion, to your point. Like, you go to the carnival and you're like, oh, I got to get my girl that, oversized teddy bear. And the guy working the thing's like, oh yeah, like, let's go. It's only take like 3 shots. You get 3 shots. I'll throw in 2 extras for $5. They lure you in, and it's all it's all the same.
Add in, please. Have yourself a day, or you've had a day.
Have yourself a break.
Yeah, have yourself a break.
I'm writing that down in my notes right now. Have yourself a break.
There's more that I've thought about making that content, but it's just so, I don't know. It's just it's such low hanging fruit for me from a execution standpoint of like. I thank you for doing it though. It's just so like I just don't get into enough.
They all copy each other.
I've deleted. I don't get into Whatnot. I don't do like nothing against the other streaming platforms, but I have no current interest in any. Once licensed basketball comes, now I make a total different story. But right now, I'm happy to say, like, I mean, Alex, I'm being very upfront with you. I have not bought a single, whether it's wax, pack, box, single card slab of any of this year's Topps Chrome, Topps Finest. Like
Good for you, man.
no basketball.
Stay away.
It's been. I'm like, you know what? Even Panini basketball, I'm like, but like, it's okay. But I
Right.
know it's so funny. These Fanatics Live, and I specifically say Fanatics Live because they're part of the Fanatics machine, right? Like Whatnot isn't, but their streamers will be like, hey man, it's unlicensed, but it's all okay. It's cheaper. It's cool. It's great. I will tell you literally a year from now, when I know they're going to get in like a few months, but a year from now, they're going to be like, unlicensed is trash. It's terrible. But of course,
Right.
they're saying what works right now. And
Right.
I guess
You can't get autos anywhere else. You can't get Jaden's auto anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's so exhausting, man.
Oh my
And you know what?
God.
At the end of the day, like, not to single anybody out or call out like a breaker. Obviously,
Here we
everybody
go.
always calls that backyard.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, all these other breakers, they're just backyard stands. That's all they are. They just all copy each other. Burn. All right, let's switch
Burn.
topics here.
You're doing so good.
I
First
know we were doing
hour and
so
15
good.
minutes.
It's all
First
right.
hour and 15 minutes.
We're
No,
good.
I love
We're good.
this.
We're still
I
on
love
pace.
this.
We're
All
still
right,
on
let's
pace.
go.
I've got two more topics for us.
Yes,
The
yes.
first one is being online in the hobby.
Sure.
So let's peel back the curtain a little bit.
Mhm.
What's it like to put ourselves out there in a space that's passionate but often divided? And how do we handle, and this is something I know that you have dealt with quite a bit, backlash, criticism, being misunderstood, and what we've ultimately learned from those experiences, what we've taken away, and the tension of evolving in public while still trying to stay true to ourselves and true to the mission.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best person for this because I'm still learning, and I will tell you, do everything the opposite of what I've been doing. That's the best thing to do. Look, I mean, I love that last part about evolving in the public. Like that is literally what's going on. I did
Right.
not have a social media presence. I am not savvy with social media. I've learned how to do CapCut. I've learned how to do all these different things along the way, and I just either self-learned it or I learned it from people who have done it before me and they've been nice enough to help answer some questions. But this is not a like I'm not even a good person to ask this stuff. And I think a lot of people who get backlash or criticism, that like if you're a content creator, I guess it's part and parcel of the whole experience, because I guess you would rather have people love and hate you than not care at all, because there are definitely some content creators who like no one cares what they do, and I feel bad because part of me is like, man, like imagine your tree falling in the woods and no one's there to hear it. Like, does it even make a sound? Right? That's kind of how I feel bad for some of them, but they keep doing it and good for them. But when it comes to this actual, like, how do you handle it? Like, it's the same way you would handle anything in life. I've been trying to get better with it's so funny, like in my personal life I do feel like I handle things much better than I do in the hobby, but it's that social media aspect where it's the nameless, faceless accounts, the burner accounts. Like I know that there are very well-known people in the hobby space who feel like they want to just dig at someone and they have burner accounts because they feel like they could never say it from their real actual public account, because then they would be rightfully tarred and feathered, because they're supposed to be a stalwart in the hobby, or they're supposed to be this beacon in the hobby. But there are definitely people who let their intrusive thoughts win through burner accounts, and it's just so sad. I'm being very honest with you, Alex, and I'm happy to say it on the record. I have no burner accounts, no troll accounts. Like, and that's sometimes what gets me in trouble is sometimes I do let my intrusive thoughts come into comments or into my because I like to clap back at trolls, and I'm probably shouldn't do that. Like, that's what I'm telling people, do as I say, not as I do. But like, I'll make content that calls out certain things or certain people where I feel like there's like some sort of injustice or I feel wrong personally and my ego is attacked. That all said, like, social media, it's like, again, you used that word earlier, fugazi. It's not real. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters are like the people who love you and support you and respect you, and who are actually in your life. And so being online in the hobby, like, this is a great topic, but it's like it's man, taking breaks is good. It really is.
100%. Yeah, this is a topic I really wanted to talk about, because for me, like, being online, especially when you're trying to lead something like Collectors MD, it's complicated, right? This is a passionate space, but it's also so divided. There's a lot of love here, but there's also, we've talked about this offline, there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of noise, and a lot of quick judgments. And for me in the beginning, I'll be honest, I was really hesitant to even go live or show my face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't want to be the guy talking about recovery and responsibility
Mm-hmm.
while also still carrying debt in, you know, from the hobby myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid of being judged. I was
Mm-hmm.
afraid of how people would perceive me. I was afraid someone, you know, might say, you're not clean enough, you're not polished enough, or you're not far along enough to be doing this or to be at the forefront of this. And that fear, truthfully, almost kept me silent. There was actually an individual who I spoke with early on. This was back in March when I launched Collectors MD, who was like, dude, you just got to pick up a mic and start talking. And I gave him a shout out a few times. That individual is Mr. Minty, who is one of,
Oh,
his name is
yay.
Steve. Yeah, he's one of the
Yeah.
nicest guys in the hobby.
Yes.
And he's been
Yes.
so supportive and has provided some really incredible, you know, constructive feedback, and has really helped me shape a lot of what I've been doing at Collectors MD. But over time, you know, I realized that aside from the advice I received from Steve, that, you know, it was exactly the reason I had to speak up, because I'm not trying to position myself as some flawless authority. I'm still in the thick of it
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still figuring it out. And I think that's what makes Collectors MD feel real and authentic to people. It's
Real.
not
Yeah.
curated, it's not corporate, and it's definitely not perfect. It's raw and it's human.
I
And
love it.
so, one thing I want to address here is imposter syndrome. That's
Yeah.
something I learned about when I was working at a company called Morning Brew. The CEO, Alex Lieberman, had a personal podcast where he talked a lot about imposter syndrome and how it can creep in. And there are days where I wonder, I'm like, why me? Who am I to lead this? But every time someone reaches out to me and says, man, I thought I was the only one, it's a reminder that this isn't about being the expert. It's about being honest, being vulnerable. It's about creating a space where people can evolve out loud without shame. And yeah, that's messy and uncomfortable at times, but it's also where the healing starts. And at the end of the day, I'd rather be misunderstood for trying to, you know, build something real than just stay silent in fear, because, you know, this mission really matters. And I know that because of all of the validation and support that I've received from people in the hobby, like you, Denny.
Yeah.
And it's bigger than me. It's bigger than my own insecurities, and it's so incredibly important. And I feel very strongly that this is just the beginning for Collectors MD. And you know, whether I continue to be the leader of the message or we do it collectively as a community, which is ultimately my goal, I know that Collectors MD is going to be a mainstay in the hobby for you know, many years to come.
I love it. I love it.
So with that, we can pivot to our last topic, which is, where do we go from here? So let's dream a bit. If we could shape the hobby in the next 5 years, and it doesn't necessarily have to be reform or guardrails or, you know, elimination of the bad actors, like we talk about that enough. But what do we want to see? Like, what gives us hope, especially when we're feeling burnt out or discouraged? Let's like each throw out, you know, a word to the people about, you know, how do we feel stuck, disillusioned, or like we've, you know, started to lose ourselves a little bit?
Yeah, this is really tough because it requires someone to, one, be creative and long-term planning and have some goals or wishes in mind. And I feel like I live so I fly by the seat of my pants, whether it's at a card show or online, or like when it comes to hobby, I just kind of like, I know I have to be more proactive. And then as a content creator, I am proactive. I have to make content, but I also don't like the reactive nature of a lot of uh, it's hard for me to answer this because I don't have a good answer. I don't if you could say, hey, Denny, if you were the CEO of Fanatics Fest, what would you do to fix this hobby? I wouldn't have an answer. I wouldn't know. Like, I don't have a long-term vision. I remember early on in my content creation journey, before even I was before I even had front-facing whatever. Before I was in front of the camera, people would be like, what's your goal with all of this? And I was like, I don't have a goal. What do you mean goal? Like, I'm just having fun. And then, people, because I'm supposedly more organic or authentic than other content creators, they the companies came after me like, oh, we want to do this with you, we want to collaborate with you, we want to give you money for this, or we want to give you an affiliate code for that. And it's like, it was really flattering. My ego was like stroked. I was like, wow, this is really cool, like these people like me. And then along the way I kind of like lost my way, where I don't have a good answer as to like what would we want to see. Again, even with the whole regulation and reform, like breaking, someone else is gonna have to deal with that, not me, because I don't know. Singles market, like I would love to see people love cards more and more. Like, I'm not saying kumbaya, let's all love base cards, but like there's too much of an emphasis on these overproduced case hits. Like people like love downtowns and kabooms right now for card shows, and they provide liquidity, and they're liquid cards. I don't care. They're so soulless. They are so, like, I'm not saying they're ugly cards. I mean, they're aesthetically, they look nice and they look cool, but like they don't have any
They're
story or meaning.
oversaturated. Yeah.
They don't have any
And
meaning.
every big player gets a new downtown every year. How many
Yeah.
downtowns and color blasts does Patrick Mahomes have?
Yeah, and now they have the legends, which is fine, like, because I revere the legends, but like they
But
have all of these.
everybody's been waiting for the Adam Vinatieri downtown. So,
Oh
like
gosh, that's so
come
funny.
on, man. What are we doing?
But I would love. Okay, maybe I do have an answer. It's to get back to like the artistry of the cards and the beauty, and
Yeah.
like I mean, I remember when Upper Deck. It doesn't always have to be Panini Photogenic or Top Stadium Club, because those are known for like really cool full bleed artwork and all that stuff. But I would love. Okay, let me say this, and I think Topps does a better job than Fanatics. I mean, Panini. I hate that Panini. The front of the card, the picture used of the player, is identical to the back of the card. It drives me nuts. I remember
Yeah, I
in
never
my
even really thought about that.
it is soulless. It is like a kid being like, oh, time's up, I better, pencils up, I'm done with my test. It's like there's no one cares about backs of cards. Again, I'm not trying to become kumbaya. Everyone must learn every stat from 10 years of Michael Jordan's career to figure out what he's done. I'm not saying all of that. I'm just saying I would love for a different picture to be on the back of the card. And if I ever had a chance to talk to Michael Rubin about like any of this, that would probably be my number one thing, is to be like, look, man, these photos in the backs of cards suck. Can we do something? Can we do something about this?
Yeah.
Because cards front and back should have a story, should mean something.
Right.
Because right now they don't. The backs suck.
Yeah. I hear that. I think details are really important, and the manufacturers have definitely gotten lazy, right? Like with the downtowns being created by AI now, and they were
That's right.
they were people were so critical of those that they actually redesigned them for
Yep.
Clearly Donruss.
Yeah.
The downtowns were hugely improved for that set. I think in large part because of how people how they were received by the
Good. And that's the collectors voicing their opinion and
Yeah.
getting
And that I will say
making some
that
change.
that happens. How about Anthony Black and Grady Dick having a dual logo man in Flawless?
That's what you want in the No,
I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, honestly, like it's funny because it's such low hanging fruit, and it's easy to say and it's a joke, but sometimes when you do feel burnt out or discouraged, like those small minor juvenile, like let's be real, like these are supposed to be for kids, but we've made it corporate and we've made it expensive. We've
Right.
made Flawless, we've made National Treasure and all that stuff, Upper Deck Exquisite and all this. And so now it's big money, and it's time to be a big boy industry if you want big boys in it. And yet, I say all that, and yet, by virtue of being a male dominated industry and in all levels, from end consumer to the C-suite levels and all that, and everyone in between, it's like, gosh, there is a level of like just young kid in us, or just juvenile. Like we're all
That's
just
why we
little
do it. Yeah.
kids. We're all little kids.
100%. And I think that's what fuels a lot of us. I think the nostalgia is a huge part of it, but it can also be really dangerous because the manufacturers know exactly how to capitalize on that and
Push the button.
push the button, push the nostalgia button. I actually wrote a daily reflection piece. It's going to get to a point where I'm going to say I wrote a daily reflection piece, because not to pat myself on the back, but I have written one every single day, with the exception of the handful of people who have contributed. And by the way, Denny, I would love for you to write a daily reflection.
Thank you.
Not to put you on the spot, but I have written one, or I have published one every day since March 26th, which was the day that I think we launched Collectors MD.
That's so impressive. Yeah,
I appreciate that, man. And we're not slowing down. We're going to continue to pump those out.
Absolutely.
For me, as far as like dreaming big, I want to see the hobby finally let go of like the outdated mindset that it has, kind of lived in for like to sort of pay homage to the past. And like, they're always doing retros and throwbacks, and like, that's cool. I appreciate that, but sometimes it just becomes like, again, oversaturated. Like too much of anything is just becomes really mundane. And so like, one thing is like, why not embrace the tools of the future? Like, why not embrace technology like AI or like augmented reality, immersive storytelling, immersive experiences? Like, I will say, like, some of the stuff that they're doing with Fanatics Live, or sorry, Fanatics Fest, while it maybe some of it can be perceived as a little bit I don't know, corny, or canned. I was there last year, and they have some pretty cool things going on.
Oh, you were there.
Right?
Oh, I didn't realize.
I was. Yeah, I stopped by for a day.
Okay.
But it's like, not to do all this, not to boost prices, but to like deepen the connection with the community, with individuals. Imagine being able to, like, I don't know, scan a card and like instantly hearing the player's story, or like seeing the highlight reels. And like, they started to do that with NFTs, like Top Shot, and like the Panini still does the whole NFT thing, right? What do they call that again? The blockchain. But like deeper than that, like trace the card's ownership history. Like that sort of thing is cool. Imagine like collecting experience that feels alive, interactive, personal, limitless. Like for me, I'll bring up an example. A couple years ago, I hit the Tyrese Halliburton Nebula 1/1, his true rookie out of Mosaic. It wasn't the Prism, so it wasn't that big of a card, but it was the product hit out of Mosaic Choice. I hit that card with I think I mentioned to you, Sarah B. Jordan from Blaze. Actually, no, that was a different story. But I did hit that card with Blaze, and I was really stoked about it at the time. I think it was his first year of becoming an all-star, leading the league in assists, really started to come into his own, right? I eventually received an offer from a collector, I guess a high-end collector, maybe it was a Halliburton collector, that I couldn't pass up. Ended up selling it for a significant amount. Of course, I turned around and spent that money on wax, but I did sell it for a good amount. And since these playoffs, I have seen that card traded or sold 4 times. Mind you, I sold it raw and it was graded a PSA 10. But each time it's like whatever, like it's not that big of a deal at this point. Like obviously Halliburton's having a generational playoff run and it's really cool what he's doing in the finals. But I've now seen that card pass hands from collector to collector, and ultimately it's probably reseller to reseller trying to make a buck on it 4 times in the last couple months alone. And if there was a way to, like, I don't know, interact with those individuals who touch the card or, own the card at one point, some sort of interactive feature where you can still engage with the card that you once owned without being like overly invasive. I don't know. I think that would be pretty cool. Obviously that's very high level and I'm just spitballing. There's obviously a lot of nuances there that, you probably have to account for, but I don't know. I think that would be cool. But beyond the tech, I really want to see a culture shift. I want to see a hobby that's built on curiosity, creativity, and care, where we celebrate, the eccentric collectors, the collectors that are out there, or just collecting, cool inserts that are very common and don't sell for much, but, it's part of their storytelling. Like, Maya, who Bullseye Breaks, who I featured as as part of Collector Spotlight. I think she's a really great example of that. Artists, you mentioned art. Maybe like people who create their own cards, or who, I don't know, just add patches to cards. Like I know Pete, that's kind of frowned upon in some
I know,
circles,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
I do think that some people put out pretty cool product. Doesn't even have to be cards. It could be like, stand-up displays, what they're doing with their custom break stands, or slab. Now I'm like giving everybody a shout out. But what's the name of this company? Slab Factory. These things, like, it's cool that you can get your own custom label and it looks like a graded card, and you could stack them with your slabs. Like, people are doing cool stuff in the hobby and making
Yeah.
like them into their own mom and pop shop type businesses. Like, whether it be brick and mortar or online, like, people are doing really cool things out there, and it's very commendable. You got to respect the hustle. But like, I just want to see a culture where like being a collector means something again, not just in the financial sense, but in the emotional sense. Because
Yeah.
cards really are their time capsule. They scratch an itch that pretty much nothing else can. Their art,
Yeah.
their memory, and they deserve to be treated as such. And that's why I still push for, being part of the hobby. Like, it's okay
Right.
to still be immersed in the space. It doesn't mean you have to spend, the entire mortgage on next week's select release. Like, it's more than that. So, well,
All
one
right.
last thing I'll say here is what gives me hope is how many people are quietly pushing for this sort of change already. People are innovating. I mentioned some of these companies. There are, tools that are coming out. People are creating communities like we talked about with Mantle, and reimagining what collecting can look like and doing it with heart. That's what keeps me going when I'm feeling drained, discouraged, or burnt out. And for anyone who's listening, who feels stuck or disillusioned, you're not too far gone. You're not behind. You're not broken. You just are overwhelmed in a space that rarely tells you it's okay to slow down, and it's okay to start over. You can define what collecting means to you. You can choose a version of this hobby that brings you peace, inspiration, and purpose. There are different versions of the hobby. Look at Bullseye Breaks versus, one of the high-end collectors that's chasing every logo man and flawless. Such different individuals, both still involved in the same hobby. So the future's already here. We just have to be bold enough to build it together. And
I mean, there's so
that'll be
much I
my
could say, but I don't want to step on the mic drop outro. Whatever I was gonna say pales in comparison. So I'm cool with just saying I agree with it. I mean, should I just say one last word about what
I was gonna say
inspiring?
I would love for you to close it out before I
Okay, so
send us
yeah,
off.
I have no notes. Actually, one thing, because it's on my side of my screen. There was a really cool thing. It was like a video pen where Kobe Bryant, and it wasn't for pack pulled cards, but basically you could get a card, or I'm sorry, not card. It's like basically an autograph of Kobe where he signed for Upper Deck, I think, and you could see him signing, and it was like a CD, right? I mean, CDs don't exist much anymore, but think about what we could do with QR codes. And again, I have no affiliation whatsoever. I never worked with Rare Edition, but there's like QR codes where you can um, basically open up something, a special moment in that. You could do anything with that QR code. You could record yourself talking about the card. You could put up a highlight of that player, your favorite highlight. And I don't know if many people know about that, but I think that's really cool. And I know there's some hardcore collectors, again, not flip, not resale value, not PSA, but just straight up, I want my card encapsulated. I want it to look cool, and I love this QR feature. I don't even own a single
Totally.
Rare Edition slab, so I'm just saying that the
Yeah.
technology is there, but the problem with the heart is there's no money in heart. There's
Mhm.
money in the brain, and there's money in the how do we extract the most? So I
That's why
guess
everybody turns to PSI.
yeah, so the final thing I guess I'll say is like I just don't want people to lose hope just because Fanatics, again, not a fanboy, not a that they pay me money, but like I know a lot of people are like upset and worried about, oh, they're gonna have a monopoly. I inherently do not love I think that monopolies like PSA basically, and not a monopoly by it's effectively a monopoly. It's not technically a monopoly, but almost like
Yeah.
how sports wax and ripping wax and breaks are not technically gambling, which I'll I shouldn't brought up now, but I thought we will weave it in later earlier, but it's all good. But so having said that, um I just know that if we are able to collect what we actually like love, and I flip cards I hate. I should admit I flip football and baseball cards all the time, but like basketball cards are hard for me to flip because I just want to keep them. Like this Tyrese Halliburton I recently picked up. I bought with the intent to flip, and I'm like, man, he's so awesome. I'm not even
Yeah.
a Pacers fan, but I love this moment, and I want to keep this moment and remember
Right.
that I bought this card during this insane playoff run. So
Right.
I think that going back to just remembering who you were as a kid, whether it was with your lunchbox and seeing that missing shadowless Charizard, or
Charlie Lizard.
me or trading or gifting a card to a friend and just feeling that moment and just feeling so bad. Just remember, like we all have like you know inner children in us that want like closure or resolution, or like we're all chasing something.
Right.
We're not just chasing product hits, we're like chasing either our childhoods, or we're chasing like the actual collectors, the people who are going to be here long term, and not the people who are just here for a short time and just here to make money and then leave for Labubus, or whatever the next Beanie Baby type of thing is going to be. But like we're
Right.
actually here, like we're here for each other. Like leverage social media for its good, not just the bad. Like actually connect and try to reach out to people. Like I don't want to be the type of person to be like, hey man, just reach out to me by DM. I can't solve everyone's problems, but find
Right.
your person, find your group, and try to connect with them online, because you can't do this alone. If we do this alone, we're going to be in big trouble. So I want anyone who's looking, we're almost at 2 hours. It's crazy. I love this so much though. But like, honestly, if you've gotten this far, I want you to know you are not alone. Go to Alex. Don't go to me, but go to Alex. Like
Well said.
I don't like that people keep saying, oh, I'm hiding things from my spouse, or oh, my spouse, she's such a nag, or oh my gosh, it's so annoying and she gets in the way. And there's this recent whatnot thing where there's like a domestic assault happening, like literally on stream, and it's like so sad to see all this like really gross like toxic masculinity, and like, oh, like I can do whatever I want, like I'm a grown man. You are not a grown man if you are over leveraging yourself, and you are like, I don't want to try to make people feel bad listening this far, but like if you got this far, just know that like there's help and there's support, and Collectors MD and like everything that Alex is trying to do. Like, you do not live in a silo. Do not do this alone, because if you do, you are going to fail.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Denny. Truly. I 100% wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. Truly. With that, that's going to take us to the end of tonight's episode of the Collector's Compass. Denny, thank you so much, man. I am truly so appreciative of you. Everything you're doing, all the conversations we've had leading up to tonight, and we've developed a really great, I feel, great relationship
Yeah, it's friendship.
offline as well. And
Absolutely.
I'm very grateful for you. So thank you for coming on, for being real and helping push this conversation forward. If you're not following Denny, you can check him out on Instagram. It's at Denny Cards, Denny_cards. Make sure to listen to his podcast as well. It's called Hobby Hangout. He's doing really important and great work in this space. And for anyone who's new here, this show is part of Collectors MD. Collectors MD is a movement focused on supporting healthier collecting and bringing more transparency to the hobby. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, YouTube, Reddit, and Mantle, pretty much anywhere where you consume content. Most of those handles, it's at Collectors MD. You could check out our resources, our daily reflections, which we mentioned, and more at collectorsmd.com. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in live, who's gotten this far, or who caught the live on replay. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if something hit home. Never thought I'd say that, but
yeah,
here I am today.
You have to. You just have to. You just got to get over it. The more you do it, the more easier it becomes. But you have to be your biggest cheerleader, because no one else is going to do it for you. But this is a lot of fun. I mean, should we press record and actually record it now?
Oh my God.
I love doing that to new
Endstream.
podcasters.
Yeah.
I love
right?
that's like my
That'd
favorite
be
thing
nuts.
to do. No, this is a lot of fun. Thank you so much,
I
Alex.
appreciate you, Denny. We'll be back soon with episode 3 of the Collector's Compass. Until then, collect with intention, not compulsion. Appreciate you.